Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday night class. Tonight we're having a guest speaker, and our guest speaker, we're very thrilled to have him. It's Bill Roberts. He's the CEO of AWR and Associates, and he has an awesome, very informative PowerPoint presentation that he's going to show you tonight and talk to you about. And first, before we get into that, I'd just like, and we did it this afternoon as well, just if you all could put into the chat just where you're at, where you're participating from, just so he can get a feel for where everybody's at across the country. Ooh, they're going by pretty fast there, Bill. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. We got people all over the place. So thank you guys so much. And again, I think Bill's going to do his presentation, and then at the end we should have some time for questions. So if you would just hold your questions till the end, that would be great. But without further ado, I want to introduce Bill Roberts. So take it away, Bill.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be with you all this evening. It really is a privilege for me and an honor to be a presenter for the College of Court Reporting, and it's just amazing when I look at all the different states and cities that we're reaching out to this evening. Technology is a great thing. Let's see, my PowerPoint's hung up, but hold on one second here. Sorry about that. Excuse me, I'm just having, let me try it one more time.
No problem.
Here we go. Okay, sorry about that. Tonight we're going to speak on, I'm going to speak on making the transition from court reporting college to the workplace. I wish that we were talking about a more sexy and exciting subject matter like a daily copy murder trial, or possibly crisscrossing the United States and on tobacco litigation and traveling to Europe to do depositions, but we're not. We're going to talk about this transition. Some of the things I'm going to present to you this evening you already know, and hopefully by the end of our conversation tonight, you're going to have picked up a couple of pointers on things you need to know when considering where to go to work, what kind of court reporting you want to do, and then how to become the consummate professional that you can be. At the end of the presentation, I'm going to ask two questions, and we're going to see in the morning session, afternoon session, nobody got these questions, but I think we got a bigger group tonight, and maybe you will. So the first question I'm going to ask at the end of the presentation is this. What is one of the biggest mistakes recent court reporting graduates make directly after graduation before starting work? So I'll say that again. What is one of the biggest mistakes recent court reporting graduates make directly after graduation before starting work? And then the second question I'm going to ask everyone is, what is one of your biggest responsibilities to the court reporting profession? So with that, I'm just going to dive into some of these subject matters, and we'll start out kind of slow and then work into a little bit more depth. So the first question everybody needs to address is, what type of court reporter do you want to be? And of course, there's captioning. You can be an official court reporter, or you can be a freelance court reporter. I have been both an official court reporter and a freelance court reporter. I've done some captioning work, but out of these three zones of court reporting, captioning is probably my least knowledgeable area. But we're going to go into some of the pros and cons of all three areas, and many of you probably already know what field of court reporting you want to go into, but if you don't, this is going to be a good general overview to help you get there. The next thing you want to know entering into the court reporting profession or transitioning into the workplace is, how do you want to be paid? So if you prefer to be a salaried person and have benefits, health insurance, or retirement plan, paid vacation. If you answer yes to those questions, then you are probably leaning more towards an employee status. Employees are generally working for the state as an official court reporter. Some freelance court reporting agencies treat their court reporters as employees, but the bulk of freelance agencies don't. If you want to have the ability to control your income and increase your income based on your workload, if you have an entrepreneurial spirit and you want to take advantage of tax deductions and write-offs, things like a company car, deduction of office and home and equipment, and entertainment expenses, if you answered yes to those questions, then you're probably leaning more towards being an independent contractor, which would put you in the freelance court reporting realm. And then finally, what geographical area, where do I want to work? One of the blessings of the court reporting profession is that we can work anywhere in the United States and, for that matter, in many countries around the world. There are a lot of college graduates now coming out in different career paths that don't have that ability. For instance, I know several folks that have just graduated law school, and they are actually having to apply for positions as paralegals. Some people can't even apply for a job in their own career path. So as court reporters, not only are we in a high demand, but we can work anywhere in the country. So we'll start with the pros and cons of, or the different types of captioning. First type is court captioner, offline captioner, and an online captioner. A little bit of captioning work that I did was court captioning. And what that is, for those who don't know, you're working with hearing impaired individuals. Way back early in my career, when I was pioneering real-time, I didn't even have the term court or captioner. And I had a young girl come to me, and she was hard of hearing and hearing impaired, and she wanted to pursue a college degree in accounting. And somehow or another, she had heard about real-time technology from one of my lawyer friends, and so she asked me if I could assist her. So I went in the evenings with her and helped her pursue her college degree. The second type of captioning, offline captioning, is basically, as you know, on TV shows and all the programs, you have the ability to, if you're hearing impaired, to set your TV and read the captions. Well, offline captioning does not have to be done by a court reporter. It can be typed in, but you work through, listen over and over again until you caption the program. The third category, online captioning, is really what pertains mostly to court reporters. And that's where, of course, you are reporting or through steno the actual live feed of the television program, and it's coming up live on the TV. A quick Google search of income ratios for captioners, and this pertains more to online captioners. The income range is about $55,000 to $60,000 a year. So what are some of the pros of captioning? Well, one of the big pros, in my opinion, is that you get to work from your home, which means no travel expenses and not the hassle of trying to find the job, get there on time. Another big pro of captioning is there's no transcript production. Literally, you get one shot at the tape, kind of like a speed test, and you do the best you can, and that's what comes out, and then you're done. Whereas in the other two categories of an official court reporter and a freelance court reporter, you carry the weight of transcript production, knowing that you have a deadline and you have to produce the transcripts. Well, what are some of the cons of captioning? Well, the first one is work at home, the same thing that's a pro. And what I mean by that is in the profession, sometimes we call it the outpost syndrome. Some people are working out of their homes and they don't have contact with other professionals and they start to feel isolated and alone. Whereas other folks, they're just fine to be working from the home. So it just really depends on your personality. If you want to be around other folks, other professionals, then that could be a con for you. If you're happy with working out of your home by yourself, then it won't be. Another con of captioning is the subject matter is fast and hard. Anybody that listens to any TV programs know that announcers, broadcasters, journalists, they speak in sound bites. And they have, pretty much like we do with time dictation on tests, they have a certain amount of time to get a certain amount of information across the air, and so they're pumping it through as fast as they can. So it's fast and it's hard. And then finally, the last con is that oftentimes the preparation time to set up job dictionaries and get all the proper names and words in, you don't have a lot of time to do it. I have a dear friend of mine named Marty Block, and he was actually the first captioner in America, and he pioneered closed captioning. And he tells a story where there was a famous pianist who had passed away from Poland. And Marty was very concerned about getting this person's name, writing it multiple different ways, setting up different briefs, so that when Dan Rather was ripping across the news at lightning speed, that he would get the name correct. I can't remember what this musician's name was, but I'll use for sake of argument that it was Vladimir Brzezinski. So Marty stroked that in his dictionary several times to get it correct, and when the breaking news came on, much to Marty's amazement, he had gotten it totally correct, Vladimir Brzezinski, and it translated beautifully on air, but followed behind Vladimir Brzezinski, the text went something like this. Vladimir Brzezinski, world-famous pianist, died this evening. So you only get one shot in closed captioning. I hope that the hearing impaired folks found that amusing, or whether or not they're upset. Marty certainly thought it was amusing. But you get one shot, and you don't always get to put in all the proper names and things like that. So we'll move on next to the official court reporter and some of the pros. Well, as we mentioned earlier, if you're more leaning towards the employee status, this is the job for you. Health insurance, paid vacation, and a pension plan usually. One of the nice things about being an official court reporter in most jurisdictions is that you report to the same place for work every day. Even if you work in multiple counties, you'll show up for work Monday at a particular courthouse and then usually spend your entire week there, so you can leave your equipment set up and you know where you're going, just a lot easier to get there. You also have, if you have a good judge, you have the benefit of having the judge help you control the courtroom. People are getting out of line, overlapping, talking at the same time. A good judge will jump in and help you control the courtroom. Another thing that's good about having the judge is he'll help you in collecting your fees. In the freelance industry, lawyers are lawyers, and they're not afraid of litigation, so sometimes if they don't want to pay, they'll say, well, if you don't like it, sue me. And that's what they do for their livelihood, whereas a court reporter, we're uncomfortable with trying to represent ourselves in court. Well, if somebody tells you that when you're an official court reporter, you say, well, that's fine. If you don't want to pay me, I'll just talk to Judge Smith, and he can talk to you about why you should pay me. And most of the time, that'll get your money collected. Well, what are the cons of being an official court reporter? Well, the first one is less flexibility. If your judge is the type of guy that likes to start work at 8 o'clock in the morning and work until 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, that's just the way it is. That's what you're going to have to do. A lot of times, judges are on a rotation or pooled type system, and so especially when they're traveling out of town, away from their family and friends, they don't have a lot to do except work, so they'll put in a lot of hours. The other thing about being an official court reporter, the work is harder. Longer hours, faster pace. It's kind of a love-hate thing. The good thing is, in working in court, is you get to report all types of subject matter. And so very similar to what you're doing now in court reporting college, where you are working on literary, where you get the literary takes in court through the opening statements, Q&A, of course, you get that through all the witnesses presented. You get the literary again in the closing arguments, and then you get the legal opinion or the judge's charge. So you're literally reporting all types of testimony, and you can hone your skill very much in the courtroom. As I said, longer hours, and then usually you get less time to produce transcripts. So backing up to less flexibility, if you're a freelance court reporter, you can write yourself off the calendar and say, you know what, I don't want to work on Monday and I don't want to work on Friday, or I want to take Wednesdays off to work on transcripts. As an official court reporter, you're in court pretty much every day, and you're expected to do the transcripts over the weekend and the evenings, or hire a scopist to help you produce those transcripts. And finally, one of the cons that many jurisdictions are experiencing is budget cuts. So probably the main reason why a lot of people went into courts and government jobs as court reporters, they wanted to have the steadfastness of a government job. They wanted to have that security of the pension, the retirement. Well, now with many states having budget cuts, and they're one of the first line items, not the first, but one of the line items they look at are the expenses for live court reporters, and they are considering alternative technology like electronic recording. So that is one of the cons as well. So moving on to freelance reporting, just the opposite of the things we talked about earlier. As an independent contractor, you have that flexibility. You can work for multiple agencies, you can set your own schedule pretty much, and you can regulate your income. So what I mean by that, as an official court reporter, say you're on a $40,000 income, your paycheck is the same every week. Well, as a freelance independent contractor reporter, if you tell your agency, you know, I'm looking to make more income, and you start turning your work in and producing a little bit higher volume, you can actually increase your income. As I mentioned before, as a freelance independent contractor, you are basically set up as your own business. For instance, most of the court reporters that work for our agency are set up as S corporations or LLCs, and because of that, they can take tax deductions on things like office and home supplies, entertainment expenses, auto expenses. Now, it's not to say that as an official court reporter you can't take some deductions, but your salary, you can't take a deduction, but say if your salary is $40,000 as an official reporter, that salary is already subject to withholding taxes. And if your transcript income is $10,000 a year, you can offset that with some deductions, but not like you can as a freelance court reporter. As we talked about a few minutes ago, you're in a high demand. You can work anywhere in the country. I was making a presentation before the South Carolina Court Reporters Association last month, and I met a woman who was probably in her late 40s, and she was single when she went into reporting, and she told me that just because of the flexibility that she was able to work in several states. She started her career actually in Hawaii, and then after about 5 years in Hawaii, she moved to California and worked there. And the fact that she was single, she had a passport, and she literally traveled the world as a court reporter and went to many, many cool places. She just was really interesting to sit and talk to her. The other thing that's a pro, if you're working for the right agency, is the agency can help control the difficulty of work and provide training. I'm going to get into this a little further in the presentation, but usually it kind of falls into two camps with what type of agency you work for. There are those that they expect you to have a skill set and they're just going to send you on difficult jobs and not provide a lot of training, and hopefully you got what you needed in school. It's been our experience that while most of the NCRA schools are great schools, there's no way in the period that you're there they can teach you everything you need to know. So what we prefer to do at AWR is we would want to start somebody out on simple personal injury cases, shorter in duration, and then ease them into medical and technical testimony, longer durations, cases with more parties, and then provide the ongoing training throughout. You don't want to end up at a place where your first job they send you to the Pharmac Appeal Convention and you're reporting difficult terms, chemicals. I've seen a lot of reporters just leave the profession just because nobody helped control the workload and the difficulty level of where they're reporting. Well, what about the cons for freelance reporting? Well, potentially one con could be there are no benefits. And if the agency treats you as an employee and there are benefits, you are locked into that agency's deductible for health insurance. So for instance, if the agency you work for provides health insurance and it's a $5,000 deductible, you're stuck with that. But remember, as an independent contractor, you are an entrepreneur. You're actually your own corporation. So when you purchase health care benefits, those are an actual business write-off for you. So don't be intimidated by the fact, as an independent contractor where you're going to work, they don't have benefits, because you can purchase those benefits and you can use that as a tax deduction. Another con, and this is something I see over and over again with a lot of reporters starting out, and even some reporters that have been in the profession that made this mistake early on that can't catch up. You're responsible for tax payments. So for instance, if you have a 2-week check and your check after paying a fee to the agency is $1,500 for that fee period, that's the amount of money you get. You get $1,500. There's no withholding. So you have to get with a CPA or a good agency, depending on what state you're working in. They're going to tell you, well, Bill, what you should do is you should withhold 20 to 30% of your income and put it into a safe investment account like a AIG account or something like that. And then when you are required quarterly to make tax payments, you'll have the money there. The problem is a lot of people don't put that money away, and they spend it, and then they owe the government. And the last thing you want to do is be in trouble with the IRS. Most agencies don't provide workers' comp insurance. Most reporters that I talk to, they don't even understand the significance of workers' comp insurance, even veteran reporters for that matter. At AWR, even though our court reporters are independent contractors, we do provide workers' comp insurance. And what that means is if you have an on-the-job injury, chances are your health insurance is not going to cover it, so you need workers' comp insurance. So when you go on a job interview, particularly as for a freelance court reporter position, that's one of the questions you want to know. Does the agency provide workers' comp insurance? If they don't, you need to look at getting workers' comp insurance on your own. It's not expensive, but it's something you should have. So you've decided now what kind of court reporter you want to be and geographically where you want to work. Now what? We're going to get into some of the nitty-gritty on pay and how you get paid and what you should look for in this interview process. So the first thing we're going to talk about is guaranteed payment versus non-guaranteed payment. There are different terms for this. Some agencies call it being paid on the line or paid on receivables. And basically what this means, guaranteed payment means that if you turn in $1,500 worth of commission work that you perform during that 2-week period, if you're paid biweekly, come payday, biweekly, you're going to be paid $1,500. Non-guaranteed payment means if you turned in $1,500 worth of work and in 2 weeks when payday comes, the agency's only been paid 20% of that, that's what you're going to receive is 20% of the $1,500, and you're going to get paid on the balance when the agency gets paid. And I know most of you are probably thinking at this point, well, why in the world would anybody ever want to go to a non-guaranteed payment? Well, it's the difference on a fee split. We're going to get into a little further on in the presentation on specific type fee splits on how you're going to be paid, but guaranteed payment, you pay a bigger commission to the agency. So in our example, we pay 60% to the reporter to guarantee payment and then 40% to the agency. On non-guaranteed payment, we pay 65% to the reporter and 35% to the agency. So how do you determine which is right for you? Well, it's different for everybody else, but in most cases for recent graduates and students, you're going to want to go with the guaranteed payment, particularly if it's only a 5% difference, because you can't go to the bank and borrow that money for 5%. But if you happen to have some money put up, or your parents are helping out, or whatever the situation is, your spouse is working, usually it takes 3 to 6 months to build up an accounts receivable. And what that means, you'll start receiving money along, in 30 and 60 days, but you're really not going to get a consistent income for 3 to 6 months. So it's just a personal decision, but it's something that you need to discuss with any prospective agency you might be going to work for, and make the decision according to what's best for you. Next, what type of fee does the agency charge, and how are you going to be paid? And this same thing varies to jurisdiction and state to state or region to region. Are you going to be paid on a percentage basis or a flat fee basis? Most of the agencies in the Southeast and Midwest pay on a percentage basis. And what that means, like the example I talked about before with our agency, on a guaranteed payment, 60% of the reporting fees go to the reporter and 40% go to the agency. On a flat fee basis, and this is more popular in areas like New York and some areas in California, if the agency bills, say, $4 a page, they tell the court reporter, you don't even know what they bill. They say, the fee that we're going to pay you is $2 a page. Well, of course, knowing that makes sense. It's a 50% commission. But if you don't know what they bill, all you know is you get $2 a page. The only benefit I see to a flat fee rate for a court reporter is that if there's any negotiated rates or discounted rates, you're going to receive that straight flat fee. Versus somebody who's on a percentage basis, if the normal rate's $4 and they have negotiated a discounted rate down to $3, you're going to be paid 60% of that $3. The other thing that varies in regions of the country is, are you going to be paid for reporting time at the deposition? You might also hear this referred to as appearance fees. And how are you going to be paid for the reporting time? For instance, in South Carolina, reporting time is paid on an hourly basis. So we charge $50 for the first hour and $25 each hour thereafter. Whereas in our North Carolina offices, they're based on half-day fees. $90 for a half day, $175 or something like that for a full day. There are jurisdictions like New York and Philadelphia where there are no hourly fees. You're paid strictly on a per-page basis unless the job is not transcribed. So these are fee questions and issues that you need to discuss with any person you're getting ready to interview with and go to work for. And then finally, how are expedited rates calculated? In most areas, overnight transcripts, or a lot of times they're referred to as daily copy transcripts, are double the rate. So that same $4 per page rate becomes $8 per page. And then it graduates downwards, it decelerates down each day, and it's less. So 3 days would be 50%. Now, some agencies only charge expedited up to 3 days. Some charge only up to 5, and some charge 7 and 8 days. So those are things you want to know. What are the expedited rates, and what is my fee split? Another thing you're going to want to be interested to know is, what's the percentage of write-ups for that geographical area? And what I mean by that, I'll give you an example. In South Carolina, our write-up ratio is 95% and above. And so on 95% of the depositions you go on, you're going to produce a transcript and they're going to order the transcript. And of course, that's going to increase your revenue. There are areas, particularly in Florida, where the write-up percentage or ratio is only 50% and below. And that creates a problem in many ways. So they might have a higher page rate if you're a beginner and you go down and speak to somebody in Florida and they go, well, we pay $5 a page. And well, this is the place for me. Well, if you're out there on an hourly rate and $5 a page, but you're not getting any pages typed up, you're not making any money. And additionally, from a time management standpoint, it becomes difficult because you might take 1,000 pages, say, in November, and only 20% of that is written up. Well, come January, those cases get called for trial, and now you're getting calls from these attorneys, I need that other 80% of pages, and it's hard to coordinate your schedule. It's hard to establish your income when it fluctuates on the write-up percentage. And finally, you would want to know from any agency you're considering, are there financial incentives given to you, the court reporter, for bringing in new business? So in our example, in our agency, what we do is we encourage the court reporters to form relationships with clients. Court reporting is a very unique profession in that every deposition you go on, there's always the potential to bring in new business. And what I mean by that is, say for instance, plaintiff's counsel is our client, and he calls up and he schedules a deposition. Well, there's a good chance that when you get there, defense counsel on the opposing side might not be our client. So you have an opportunity through your skill set and your personality and your marketing skills to bring in defense counsel as a new client. We also provide our folks with different swag and giveaways and brochures and different techniques on how to bring in business. And we reward them with that when they bring in the business, and we say, okay, Sue, from now on, when Mr. Smith calls in, we have you listed as his preferred court reporter, and you're going to get another 5% on top of your commission rate for bringing in new business. So next, we're going to go from rate structures and how you get paid into training, which is very important. So the first thing you want to ask is somebody going to proofread and critique my work? And for how long are they going to do that? And as much as you learn in school and as hard as you try, it's pretty hard to get a good transcript, especially when you're starting out. And so you need somebody to help mentor you and help you through some of the technical testimony and format layouts and things like that. And do it until your work product is good. And the benefit of that is not only to produce a superior work product, but the benefit is with that training, you're going to get to that point where you're producing a superior work product quicker, and everything in court reporting, it's a production-oriented business. So the more that you can produce and the more accurate it is, the faster, the more money you're going to make. Something simple, but you have to do it on your own, is the agency going to set up their formats in your CAD software. It doesn't seem like much, but when you start having to count characters per line, indentations, different layouts for colloquy, Q&A, bylines, all that, it takes a lot of time. A good agency is going to go ahead and give you all those layouts, help you install them on your CAD system, and get you up working faster. I think I mentioned this earlier, but will the agency give you graduated assignments commensurate with your skill set, or are they just going to throw you into that home appeal convention? Will the agency help you achieve your NCRA certifications? And sometimes a lot of folks, particularly in a state like South Carolina, which is non-certified, non-CSR state. They go, well, why do I need certifications? And certifications are great. It's nice to have the initials after your name, and they make you feel good. But the reason for certification is they are designed as a stepping stone or rungs on a ladder to increase your skill set. And the reason you want to increase your skill set is the faster you write, the more you get down, the more accurate it is, the more formatted already, even in steno, it is to go onto paper, and then the more money you make. I remember as a young reporter, when I graduated from court reporting school, I was a very fast literary writer, but I remember I started out as an official court reporter, and the work was really hard and really fast. And even at writing 225, a solid 225, I still felt struggled. I never felt really comfortable until I got to 240 words a minute. And then, in order to help you achieve those certifications, will the agency provide financial incentives for these certifications? And what we do is we give cash bonuses for each certification, a little bit more the higher up you go. Not a lot of money, but it helps offset the training and offset the entrance fees and the travel to take these examinations. Next thing you want to look at in choosing the correct agency is reputation. The simplest form of the reputation is first to start with, well, how many years has the agency been in business? Have they been in business 2 years, or have they been in business 35 years? Also, you can check their reputation via online court reporting forums. There's CSR Nation, the National Court Reporting Association has a forum that, for instance, we go on all the time. We'll have an agency call us, and we know most of the agencies around the country, and they know us. But occasionally, we'll have somebody that's new in business, and they'll want to schedule a deposition with us. And before we take that deposition, we'll go online on the NCRA listserv forum and say, hey, I've been contacted by XYZ court reporting firm out of Chicago, and if anybody has done any work for them and can provide a credit reference, please contact me privately. And so you'll get a lot of information. So chances are, if an agency is not paying other court reporting firms, they're probably not going to pay their court reporters either. So you want to do a little due diligence and find out what the reputation of the agency is. Another good way to find out the agency's reputation is to ask the principal of the firm that you're interviewing with, I'd like to speak to some of the court reporters who work for your agency, and especially beginners. And then you'll find out from the other beginners, did they send you off to the Farmers Appeal Convention, or did they train you and help you along? Were you able to make the income that they told you were going to make when you started with this agency? Things like that. And then now we're going to move on from basically the interview process into some things that you're going to hear about when you get out in the profession, like ethics, professionalism, and a couple other topics. And these things are going to help you to hone not only your skill set, but your whole professionalism, and help you bring in more clients and make more money. So you're going to hear a lot about ethics. And when I started doing research on ethics, I went online and I came across an article entitled Professionalism and Ethics, written by an actual court reporting student in 2013 named Jada Spires, who was a student at the Alvin Community College in Texas. And she won first place with this essay for NCRA's CASE scholarship. And in its simplest form, this is what she had to say about ethics. Basically, it's what's right or what's wrong, good or bad. Growing up, my father was a New York City police officer, and he used to tell me, Bill, you'll never get in trouble unless you're doing something wrong. Well, that's ethics in its simplest form. But for you as a beginner and court reporter, how are you to know what's ethical, what's right, what's wrong? Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go and download a copy of the NCRA's Code of Ethics. And the NCRA Code of Ethics is going to cover some general basic topics. Not a lot. It's a pretty narrow document. These are some of the things they're going to talk about. You need to be fair and impartial. Avoid conflicts of interest. You need to keep everything confidential. You can't set prices with other reporters or agencies, no price fixing. And they have limitations on gifting. NCRA also has written opinions that delve into specific areas of ethics. I'm going to just give you 2 quick examples and then we'll move on from ethics. So it says to be fair and impartial. So a particular ethical opinion with NCRA would be this. You're a brand new court reporter, you go on a deposition, and you're hired by plaintiff's counsel, Mr. Jones. And Mr. Jones says to you, Sue, I want you to expedite this transcript and give it to me tomorrow, but I don't want you to tell Mr. Smith, defendant's counsel, that I'm getting this transcript expedited tomorrow, and I just don't want you to tell him. And the question would be, what should Sue do? Well, if she's working for a good agency, she can go to one of the principals and ask them. But if she dug around in NCRA Code of Ethics, what she would be able to say is, Mr. Smith, I'm more than happy to provide this transcript to you on an expedited basis for tomorrow, but under the NCRA Code of Ethics, I'm charged with being fair and impartial, so I'll have to let Mr. Jones know that this transcript is being expedited and to offer him the same services. Of course, avoiding conflicts of interest, you don't want to go and do reporting of depositions. If your husband's a lawyer, you don't want to be his court reporter. That's a conflict of interest. We tell all of our staff and court reporters, as far as confidentiality goes, we treat every deposition as if it was confidential. If you're an official court reporter, that's a little different. Those depositions are open to public record because they're in a public facility. But, you know, if your neighbor is getting a divorce, that's their business and they're entitled to that confidentiality. So those are just a couple of quick examples on ethics. So next we'll move into professionalism. Merriam-Webster's definition of professionalism is the practicing of an activity, especially a sport, by a professional rather than an amateur. And when I read this and I think about a professional athlete and I try to relate that to me as a court reporter, that's a high benchmark. Usually, you know, in sports, if any of you played tennis in school or football or baseball, you know that at the middle school level, everybody gets to play, they get a trophy, and then if you're good enough, you go on to the high school level. If you're exceptional, you get to play at a college level, but only the elite of elite play in professional sports. And I always like to use the example of Tim Tebow, Heisman Trophy winner, phenomenal college player, but struggled to make it in the NFL. So I moved on from Merriam-Webster into Learner's Dictionary to try to get some definitions that are more aligned with court reporting. And this would be skill, good judgment, and polite behavior that is expected. A high level of professionalism is expected when working with clients. She's highly respected. So professionalism is key. So I went on further in this pursuit of professionalism, and I found an article in the Houston Chronicle Small Business section, and they gave these characteristics of professionalism. And I intentionally left these characteristics alone. I didn't modify them for court reporting. But of course, what is obvious to most, but not necessarily to everyone, is professional appearance. You want to have a business suit, whether you're a man or a woman, you want to make a professional appearance. You do not want to go to a deposition like this with a skull and crossbones on your shirt, or looking like you just came out of Woodstock in 1960. This person is professionally attired. That's what an attorney wants to see in his deposition. Now, I know what many of you are thinking, well, Bill, that's a little bit unfair because the second example looks like a professional model. And you're right, she looks pretty good. But if we go on, to this one, now we see the same individual in the first shot with the skull and crossbones, and she's had a little bit of a makeover. She had a haircut, she's got some makeup, some accessories, and a business suit, and looks a lot better on the right than she did on the left. So we covered appearance. Next thing is demeanor. Even though you are a brand new court reporter, you do not want to go in on your first deposition. Hopefully you're not going there by yourself. Hopefully your first deposition you're sitting in with a more experienced reporter who is giving you some training. But when you do your first individual deposition, you want to exude confidence. You want to be polite. They do not want to hear that this is your first deposition and that you are terrified. They're expecting you to get the job done. So demeanor at your first deposition should go something like this. You arrive at the deposition early. You show up when the parties arrive. You walk up confidently to each party and you say, "Hi, my name is Bill Roberts. I'm your court reporter today. Here's my business card if you need to contact me. I want to thank you for calling our agency today and for allowing me the privilege to be your court reporter." They do not want what I call a Kathy chatty. They don't want to hear you complain about how far you drove to the deposition, how bad the traffic was, how early you got up, and things like, "I hope this job doesn't go past 5 because I've got child care issues." The attorney is preparing the deposition. He's preparing for an important event. So he doesn't need a lot of overtalk. Sometimes people get nervous when it's quiet and they think they've got to keep talking. This deposition, for all you know, could be $1 million case. So if he engages you, great. Have a little chit-chat. If he doesn't, let him concentrate on getting ready for his deposition. Another question that comes up all the time is, how do I go about interrupting a deposition? Well, there's certain things you can interrupt for and certain things you shouldn't interrupt. For instance, spellings, you don't interrupt the deposition to get a spelling. You mark electronically on your steno machine, and you get spellings at the end of the deposition or at the break. If you have to interrupt, you do it calmly and professionally. "Excuse me, Mr. Witness, would you please slow down so I can get everything down?" Or, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Smith, I didn't hear that objection." The best way to minimize interruptions at the deposition is to cover these items before the deposition even starts. As the court reporter, you are fully in charge of the deposition until you swear in the witness. So before I swear in the witness, I give the witness instructions, and I do it loud enough so all counsel can hear me. "Mr. Witness, my name is Bill Roberts. I'm the court reporter today, and I'm going to be taking down everything that you say. It's very important that you speak slowly so I can get everything down. If counsel interposes an objection, please wait until they have made their statement before you try and talk." And hopefully that's going to make your job a little bit easier. Reliability, same thing. They don't care how many years you've been reporting. What attorneys want to know is they need you to get the job done, and they need you to follow through on the promises that you make. The worst thing that you can do as a court reporter is tell an attorney you're going to get him a transcript on a certain date and don't deliver. So our motto here at our agency is always better to under-promise and over-deliver. If I tell an attorney, "Mrs. Smith, I'll do my best to get this deposition to you on Friday," and I deliver on Thursday, then I'm a rock star. If Mr. Smith tells me I need this deposition on Wednesday, I need to know my capabilities of what I can produce and what I can do to get the job done. Best thing is to get the deposition to him on Wednesday. If you can't, you might have to work out a compromise. Is it okay if I get you a rough draft on Wednesday? But they are looking for reliability, getting the job done. Competence, we talked about that a little bit earlier, but you want to strive to become an expert. You do that through continuing education. You join your local state court reporting association, the National Court Reporting Association. You attend the seminars, and you work towards getting your professional designations. We've covered ethics already and communication. Communication is essential. You want to be professional on the phone. Your voicemail messages need to be professional. Not something like, hey, bro, this is Bill, man. Leave me a message. I'm out partying today, and I'll get back to you on Monday. None of that. Court reporters make a lot of money, and for that reason, we're expected to be professionals, and you got to act like it in every aspect of your life and even on your off time. Written correspondence, lawyers like to deal in short, concise sound bites. So when you write a letter, they don't want a once upon a time story. They want something with bullet points right to the point. And finally, organizational skills. I like to keep all my exhibits and worksheets in an expandable folder, each one for a separate job. And then I have my backup material. I have a cloud backup. I have my computer material, and then I have a off-site thumb drive that's in that same expandable folder. Accountability. You're accountable for all your actions, all your deliveries, everything you do. The typical normal response for anybody when you're confronted with somebody who's a misunderstanding, you didn't need a deadline, or they told you that they needed it right away, is to try and defend yourself. That's not what you want to do with a lawyer. Lawyers are professional litigators. Their job is adversarial confrontation. So what you want to try and do is work towards a solution. And we're going to cover some of those real quick, and I'll move right along because I know we're running a little bit over. So we have ethics, we have professionalism, and then next we have work ethics. So it doesn't matter how ethical you are or how professional you are, if you don't have work ethic, you can't make it in this profession. You are going to be expected to burn the midnight oil when you get into this profession and work hard. And that's why court reporters make the income that they make. So work ethic is essential. The more you build your skill set, the easier this job becomes, but it takes a work ethic on practice and on transcript production to get the job done. And finally, with work ethic, ethics, professionalism, work ethic, we have customer service. This is an interesting statistic. 80% of companies say they deliver superior experience, but 8% of their customers, only 8% agree. Good example for me is my cable company. When I call them up to find out why my bill went up by 20% or why I can't watch HBO anymore after I navigate through 20 different phone banks and then end up overseas talking to somebody or I have to give them all the same information all over again, I'm not a happy customer. My cable company thinks they're doing great, but not so much for me. So I'm going to give you a couple of quick points on customer service, and then I'll ask those two questions that I told you at the beginning. Customer service. So we've already covered appearance. How's your voicemail message? The best way to do a voicemail message is you've got to script it, practice it, and it should be upbeat. It shouldn't be like, hey, this is Bill. You've reached my voicemail. After the tone, leave a beep. This person knows that they're in your voicemail. You don't need to tell them, sorry, I missed your call. They know they know they've missed your call. Hey, this is Bill. I'll call you back as soon as I can. You know, if you're interested in real-time litigation, please go to my website, scheduledepot.com. I'll call you back as soon as I can. Same thing with your Facebook page. If you've got any crazy things on your Facebook page, take them off. These guys, for $1 million case, they're going to be looking at you and decide if you are the court reporter, they won't work for them. And if you're out there doing shots or bong hits or whatever, you're not the person they're looking for to trust a multi-million-dollar case. Attitude. There's nothing worse than an attitude of indifference. Somebody says, I need this transcript by Friday, and you go, you know what, I'll get it to you whenever I can get it. I'll get it to you next Friday, but it ain't going to happen, sorry. And these are some things why customers are lost. Most people don't realize this, but 1% die, 3% move away, some are influenced by friends. Only 9% moved away by competition, but 68% of clients are turned away by an attitude of indifference. And that will affect the entire agency that you work for. If you're a brand new court reporter and you go in there with an attitude of indifference and that agency says, don't ever call XYZ firm again because Sue really had a bad attitude when she came here. You're not going to be long in this career, and your new agency owners are not going to be real happy with you. Consistency, you can't do 10-day delivery one time and 30-day delivery the next. I'll give you 3 quick scenarios on follow-through, and these, like I said, don't necessarily apply to court reporting, but they give you the idea. So I've had a situation with a client, and now I've resolved it, and I can give level 1, well, I hope that works out for you. Or level 2, I can say, Mr. Smith, will you call me and let me know if this solution works? Or the preferred technique would be, Mr. Smith, would it be okay if I call you within the next 40 hours and check in and be sure that that solution worked? That's the kind of customer service that's going to have the phone ringing at your court reporting agency that you're working for, and they're going to say, from now on, send Sue on all my depositions. She was great. She was a great communicator. She got the job to me before she said she was going to, and she had a great attitude. And finally, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. It's the soft skills. A lot of times I'll have a client from out of town, and they say, Bill, can you call me a cab and take me to the airport? And I said, no need for that, Mr. Smith. I'll be glad to drive you there myself. Now, he might come back and do work in my area. He might not, but hopefully he's going to tell somebody else that Bill's a great court reporter. He even took me to the airport. So wrapping up, we have ethics plus professionalism plus work ethic plus customer service equals success. So back to the first 2 questions I told everybody about, and you can use the chat session. What's one of the biggest mistakes recent graduates make directly after graduation from court reporting college before starting work? Okay, here's the answer. They stop practicing. When you get to 225, you've passed 3 225 tests, and you're just beginning to write 225. You're really not necessarily writing a solid 225. If it takes you 60 days to land a job and relocate, and you pack your machine up and don't use it, by the time you start work, you are going to be writing probably 180. And finally, up again here. Sorry, the PowerPoint hung up, but let me see if I can.
Hey, Bill, your microphone is off. Can you turn your microphone back on, please?
Okay, sorry about that. I don't know what
hey.
But anyway, I'm glad to answer any questions anybody might have.
Thank you so much, Bill. Really appreciate it. A wonderful presentation. Does anyone have any questions for Bill? Oh, the second question. Go ahead with that.
Oh. So, okay, they probably didn't get that maybe because, let me try and go back to it. The second question I referred to at the beginning?
Right.
Yeah. I don't know why this PowerPoint is just really hung up. Okay. Second question, what is one of your biggest responsibilities for the court reporting profession? And that is recruitment. Court reporters are in very high demand. We can work anywhere in the country, but if we don't get enough young people into the profession, they're going to be forced to go outside of court reporting to make the record to alternative means like electronic recording. So tell your friends about what you're doing. And I don't know of anybody that's become a court reporter that just didn't love it. It's a great profession.
Thank you again so much, Bill. We really appreciate you taking the time and doing the presentations both this afternoon and this evening.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
You all have a great evening. Thank you.
Bill, one of the students had asked if they could get a copy. It's Dawn. She asked if she could get copies of your slide presentation.
Absolutely. I'll send it. Actually, I think Natalie has it.
Beautiful. Okay, great.
Right.
Dawn, we'll send that off to you. Terrific. Thanks so much.
Thank you. You'll have a wonderful evening.
You too.
Thank you. You too.